students, I would like to welcome you to this video. This video today we are going to solve a practice question about the double entry. So the question that I have selected for you guys is about Mahindra. So it says that Mahindra started business on 1st November 2007. He provides the following information for his month of trading. So there are all the transactions that we have for the month of November, as you can see on your screen. So let's start solving the question by entering these transactions with the help of double entry. So first of all, what do we have to do? We have to write down the name on top of this double entry. So that's Mahindra's books. And the book in which we usually do the double entry is called General Journal, or some books they do mention the journal entries. So in this journal format, we do have the first column in which we write down the date, the second column with the title of details, and the third column is the debit column in which we will write down the amount. In the fourth column, the last one, will write down the credit amount. So let's start with our first transaction. The date of first transaction is November 1, so we'll mention the date 1st November and we'll write down the year on top of the date. So it says that the business started with the capital introduced of 160,000, out of which 158,500 was transferred into the business bank account, and the rest was placed in the business cash box. So the bank, as we know, bank is our asset, and once the asset goes up, we'll make bank account on the debit side, and the amount that will goes into the bank is 158,500. As we can see, the total capital amount is 160,000, so the capital is going to be increased, so we are going to make capital credit with the amount of 160. Now the difference of these two amounts, it's mentioned the rest was placed in the business cash box, so we got the cash balance. That will be the difference of these two figures, that will be $1,500. So that's our first transaction. Now moving on to the second transaction that was happened on 2nd November. It says purchase premises 95,000 paying by credit transfer. So premises is our asset and it's going to be increased, so we are going to make it on a debit side. So the amount is 95,000, and the amount paid by credit transfer means by bank. So bank is going to be reduced, so we are going to record on a credit side with the same amount, 95,000. Here I would like to mention for the students, if anything that is mentioned in the question, Except cash, any other thing mentioned like direct debit, standing order, check, credit transfer, online transfer, it will be mentioned with the bank. So let's move on to the next transaction that is happened on 5th of November. It says we bought goods for resale. So goods we will mention with the purchases. Goods are the things that we do the business of. So purchases is going to be increase. So we will write on the debit side. We always do purchases debit. So we got goods for $2,600 and we have not paid for these goods, means we bought these goods on credit. So we'll write down the name of the person that we supposed to pay later. So we'll open an account and we'll make his account and credit like we have done with the Dulip account. So the next transaction is on 10th of November. In this transaction, it says that we return some goods to Dulip $150, which means that Dulip we return some goods, that is our purchases returns. So we'll make a credit of purchase returns account. And Dulip, now we are going to decrease the Dulip account because we are not going to pay for these goods that we return to Dulip. So $150 will come up on both sides. Some books they do mention purchase returns with return outwards and sales returns with return inwards. So let's move on to the next transaction. It happened on 14th of November. It says that we paid some general expenses by cash. So general expenses over expense, so we are going to make them on a debit side, and cash is going to be reduced. So cash account is going to be down by 275. So 275 will come up on both debit and credit side. So moving on to the next transaction that is happened on 19th of November. It says that we paid rates in cash. Rates is also our expense. So once the expense goes up, we are supposed to make them write them on a debit side, and we paid by cash, so our cash balance is going to be reduced, means cash assets is going to be reduced. So we'll write on a credit side. So the amount is 395. That will be recorded on both cash columns. So the next transaction that happened on 21st of November. This transaction, we sold some goods on credit to Anila, which means the sales account will come up on a credit side. Always remember that sales we record always on a credit side. Sold goods means the things that we do business, we sold those goods, and it's sold on credit means we have not received the amount of money yet. So we'll record with the name of our customer. Anila's account is going to be debited because we're supposed to receive the money from this person. So that will be our account receivables asset. So the next transaction happened in the same date. It shows that we paid some carriage on goods sold, $95 in cash. So this expense is called carriage outwards, which means that this carriage we paid for the goods that we deliver to the customer. So the amount is $95 and we paid by cash, which means our cash account is going to be reduced. So we'll record on a credit side. So the next transaction we have here is we paid Tulip, that will be on 24th of November. We paid Tulip $1,000 by check on account, which means our bank account is going to be reduced. So we'll write on a credit side, and the person that we make payment will write on the debit side. So Tulip account is going to be debited with the amount of 1,000, because the liability is going to be reduced, which means we have to write down on a debit side. So the next transaction that we are going to record here is on 28th of November, which means that owner took some goods costing $250 for personal use. Now in these transactions the drawings are happened, which means drawings are always recorded on a debit side. So we'll write down on a debit side, and the amount is $250, in which we took goods for personal use. We credit the purchases account. That's the only transaction in which we record purchases on a credit side. Apart from that, we did not record purchases on a credit side. So the last transaction of this question is we rented out a part of our premises and received $260 rent by check. So in this scenario, we receive a check means our bank account balance goes up with the amount of $260, and the rent we receive from the rent income account, which means that our income account is going to be increased. So we'll record on a credit side with the same account, with the same amount. So in this question we learn how to record the entries into the double entry journal format. Thank you.